Imagine yourself transported back to the early 4th century to the bustling Roman city of Merida in Hispania. Picture the grand marble streets, echoing with the footsteps of citizens. Among them, a young girl, barely 13 years old, walks with an air of unusual resolve. Her name is Eulalia, and in a matter of hours, she will face an unimaginable fate, a testament to her unwavering spirit. The tales from that era speak of 13 brutal tortures, one for each year of her tender life, a symbolic number perhaps, yet one that powerfully conveys the horror of her martyrdom. How could such a young child ignite such fury in the mighty Roman authorities, prompting them to orchestrate a spectacle of such devastating cruelty? To truly grasp the tragedy of Eulalia's final moments, we must first understand the tumultuous world she inhabited. The late 3rd century witnessed the Roman Empire teetering on the brink. Emperors rose and fell with dizzying speed, some holding power for mere months. Barbarian tribes ceaselessly assaulted the frontiers, and the economy lay in ruins. Amidst this chaos, a new religion, Christianity, was quietly gaining ground. In 284, Diocletian ascended to power, convinced that the empire's woes stemmed from the wrath of the Roman gods. He believed these deities were enraged because so many citizens had abandoned traditional Roman worship for the teachings of Christ. To appease the gods and restore divine favor, Diocletian embarked on a relentless campaign to eradicate Christianity from Roman lands. In 303, he unleashed the Great Persecution, the most systematic and brutal assault Christians had ever endured. In Merida, a vital city in Roman Hispania, lived Eulalia, born around 291 into a prosperous Christian family. Her parents, respected merchants, had carefully raised her in the Christian faith, always emphasizing extreme discretion. They understood that openly professing their beliefs could lead to dire consequences. Yet, Eulalia was no ordinary child. From a very young age, she possessed an unyielding personality and an unshakable faith. While other children played, Eulalia devoted hours to memorizing passages from Christian scriptures. Her parents, though proud, harbored deep worries. Such fervent devotion in a young girl was a perilous trait in an era of intense persecution. Around 304, Emperor Diocletian's decrees reached Merida. Governor Dion received explicit orders: all Christians must renounce their faith or face death. Pagan temples were grandly reopened, and sacrifices to Roman gods became mandatory. Refusal to participate instantly branded one as a Christian. In a desperate attempt to protect their daughter, Eulalia's parents took her to a rural property outside the city, hoping she would be safe from the authorities' watchful eyes. But they had profoundly underestimated the girl's conviction. Eulalia had no desire to hide. She viewed the persecution not as something to be avoided, but as a providential opportunity to demonstrate her profound faith. One cold December morning in 304, Eulalia slipped away from the rural estate. She walked for hours along dusty roads, her small feet carrying her toward the heart of Merida. Her destination was not her family home, but Governor Dion's palace. The 13-year-old girl had chosen to willingly surrender herself to the Roman authorities. When Eulalia appeared before the palace, the guards were bewildered. A well-dressed child, clearly from a prominent family, requesting an audience with the governor. Intrigued, Dion ordered her brought before him. What transpired in that encounter would forever alter the course of Christian persecution in Hispania. Eulalia entered the palace hall with the poise and confidence of an adult, not a child. Dion, seated on his elaborate chair, observed her with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She was small and slender, with dark, braided hair and eyes that gleamed with a determination unsettling for someone so young. "Why have you come here, child?" Dion inquired, his voice laced with an attempt at gentleness. According to ancient accounts, her reply reverberated through the silent hall. "I have come to confess that I am Christian and to denounce the impiety of your false gods." A stunned silence followed, broken only by the governor's labored breathing. No one expected such words from a young girl. Dion, attempting to maintain his composure, tried to dissuade her gently. "You are too young to understand these matters," he said. "Return to your family, make sacrifices to our gods, and you will be forgiven." But Eulalia refused to yield. Instead, she boldly advanced toward the altar dedicated to the Roman gods, which stood in the corner of the hall. Under the horrified gaze of everyone present, she spat on the sacred statues, trampled the offerings, and, according to tradition, cried out, "Your gods are demons. Only Christ is true." The hall erupted in shouts of indignation. Guards surged forward to seize the girl, but Dion halted them with a gesture. This public defiance could not go unpunished, but he needed to devise a fitting retribution. How could he torture a 13-year-old child without inciting public outrage? Dion made a chilling decision. Eulalia would be made an example. If a mere girl could defy Rome's gods with such audacity, what message would that send to other Christians? He ordered her imprisonment and immediate preparations for her execution. This would be no ordinary punishment. It would be a meticulously orchestrated spectacle of terror designed to deter any other Christian from following her courageous path. The following morning, a massive crowd converged in a public square in the city centre where the authorities had prepared a gruesome scene. Rumours of the Christian girl who had defied the governor had spread like wildfire. Some came out of curiosity, others driven by morbid fascination. Many Christian families were forced to attend, compelled to witness the dire consequences of following Eulalia's example. When the girl was brought to the execution site, many in the crowd gasped. She was undeniably a child, small, fragile, dressed in a simple tunic. Yet, her eyes still shone with the same unyielding determination she had displayed in the palace. She neither cried nor begged for mercy. She walked upright, as if proceeding to a joyous celebration, not to her own death. Dion ascended the official platform and addressed the assembled crowd. This girl has defied Rome's gods. To demonstrate the price of blasphemy, she will suffer the punishment her rebellion deserves. What followed was one of the most systematically brutal executions in Roman history. Ancient sources, particularly the 4th century hymns of the poet Prudentius, describe the horrific tortures inflicted upon the girl. While the exact details may have been dramatized for spiritual edification, they undoubtedly convey the true brutality of Christian persecution during that era. The first torture was relatively mild. Eulalia was flogged with rods. Her delicate skin broke open in bloody wounds, but she uttered no scream. Instead, accounts say she sang Christian hymns. The second torture involved iron hooks that tore at her flesh. The third, burning torches applied to her wounds. The fourth, coarse salt rubbed into her open wounds. With each agonizing torment, the crowd anticipated her surrender, expecting her to plead with the Roman gods. But Eulalia remained steadfast. The fifth torture saw red-hot irons applied to her ribs. In the sixth, her fingernails were torn out one by one. In the seventh, boiling oil was poured over her wounds. Eulalia continued singing, her voice growing weaker, but still audibly praising Christ. The eighth torture involved the mutilation of her feet with sharp blades. In the ninth, molten lead was poured over her head. In the 10th, her hair was violently ripped out, along with pieces of her scalp. Some spectators began to turn away, unable to bear the gruesome sight. The 11th torture was particularly cruel. Iron hooks tore at her breasts. In the 12th, burning coals were placed all over her body. Eulalia was still alive, but barely. Her small body had endured more pain than many hardened warriors. The 13th and final torture would deliver the fatal blow. A pyre had been erected in the center of the square. Eulalia was to be burned alive. Guards carried her to the pyre, as she could no longer walk, and tied her to the central stake. As the flames began to lick at her feet, something extraordinary occurred. According to Prudentius's ancient hymns, a white dove reportedly emerged from Eulalia's mouth at the moment of her death, a profound symbol of her soul being received by God and ascending directly to heaven. Even the Roman onlookers were reportedly struck by this phenomenon. Some interpreted it as a sign from the gods, others as undeniable proof of the girl's sanctity. Eulalia's story, however, did not end with her death. Her brutal execution, far from deterring other Christians, had the opposite effect. The unparalleled courage of a 13-year-old girl inspired adults throughout Hispania. Instead of renouncing their faith, even more people converted to Christianity. Eulalia's sacrifice had transformed into a powerful symbol of resistance against Roman oppression. Realizing his strategy had backfired catastrophically, Governor Dion forbade any mention of Eulalia's name. He ordered her body to be left at the execution site to be scavenged by wild animals. But during the night, brave local Christians secretly retrieved her remains and lovingly buried them outside the city walls. In the ensuing years, Eulalia's tomb became a sacred place of pilgrimage. Christians traveled from across the Iberian Peninsula to honor the memory of the young martyr. Reports of miracles began to emerge. Sick individuals claimed to have been healed by visiting her burial site. When Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity in 313, just a few years after Eulalia's death, she was officially recognized as a saint. A grand basilica was erected over her tomb. The girl who had died as a criminal became one of the most revered saints of Christian Hispania. The poet Prudentius in the 4th century immortalized her story in verses that are still read today. His evocative poetic descriptions of Eulalia's martyrdom transformed the girl into an eternal symbol of courage and unshakable faith. While some details may have been embellished for devotional purposes, the core of the story remains powerfully true. A 13-year-old child chose death over renouncing her deeply held convictions. Today, more than 1700 years later, Eulalia is still remembered and revered. She is the patron saint of Merida and one of Spain's most important saints. Her feast day is celebrated annually on December 10th, the traditional date of her death. The basilica built in her honor continues to welcome thousands of pilgrims each year. The story of Saint Eulalia leaves us with a profound and unsettling reflection. How could a child of merely 13 years demonstrate more courage and resilience than many adults? Her brutal death reveals humanity's capacity for both extreme cruelty and heroic resistance. It serves as a potent reminder that age does not dictate strength of character, and sometimes the most powerful examples emerge from the most unexpected places. The girl who defied an empire and paid with her life transformed her death into an everlasting victory. Eulalia did not merely die for her convictions, she rendered them immortal. Her legacy has transcended centuries, inspiring generations to uphold their beliefs, even when confronting the most extreme adversity.